All right, so ready to dive into a world that's, well, both fascinating and a little unsettling.
I am. Should be interesting.
We're talking about the world of scams, and you've given me a really interesting mix to work with this time.
Yeah.
A hard-hitting FBI report, some articles about specific scams, and even a couple of real-life stories that'll make you think twice about who you trust.
Yeah, those real life stories, they always hit differently, don't they? It's a good reminder that scams aren't just something you read about.
Right.
They can have a real impact on people's lives and their bank accounts.
Exactly. And that's really the mission of this deep dive,
Hmm.
to give everyone listening a clear view of this landscape,
Yeah.
from the shocking numbers to the clever tactics that scammers use to trap even the smartest people.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this as your crash course in Scam Prevention 101,
Nope.
but with some wild stories thrown in.
I like to think of it as self-defense, but for the digital age.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's zoom out to the big picture first. With the FBI's 2023 Internet Crime Report,
Right.
the numbers are, well, they're pretty staggering.
Yeah, they are. This year, the FBI received a record-breaking number of complaints,
Oh, wow.
over 880,000,
Wow.
with reported losses exceeding $12.5 billion.
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 Yeah.
And what's even more concerning, experts believe this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Really?
Oh yeah, many cybercrimes go unreported.
That's just mind-blowing. So what were the top scams
Yeah.
that hit people's wallets the hardest?
Well, it might surprise you, but investment scams took the top spot this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they raked in a whopping $4.57 billion in losses.
Wow.
It just goes to show how powerful the desire to grow your money can be.
Right.
And scammers know exactly how to tap into that. They promise these, quick riches,
Yeah.
especially in areas like cryptocurrency, which can seem complex and alluring to some folks.
Sure.
That's why it's so crucial to really do your research before investing in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the fear of missing out cloud your judgment.
Makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, especially when you see others seemingly making a fortune.
Right.
Okay, so what about the runner-up scams?
Well, business email compromise, or BEC, came in second,
Okay.
causing a massive $2.9 billion in losses.
Wow.
What's particularly alarming about BEC is that it's not just about stealing money.
Oh.
It's about eroding trust.
Oh.
Criminals are becoming incredibly sophisticated, impersonating trusted contacts,
Mm-hmm.
and even using phone calls and virtual meeting platforms to make their requests seem legitimate.
So they're going beyond just the classic compromised vendor email.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI report specifically highlights how these scams have evolved to target the real estate sector,
Interesting.
preying on people's excitement and vulnerability during the home buying process.
Right.
They know you're more likely to let your guard down when you're focused on closing the deal on your dream home.
Oh, so it's like they're waiting for those moments when you're most distracted
It's
and
the-
vulnerable. Okay, and what about the scam that took third place?
That would be the classic tech support scam,
Mm-hmm.
which still managed to squeeze out $924 million from unsuspecting victims.
It's hard to believe that one's still working.
Oh yeah, they prey on fear, the fear that something's wrong with your computer,
Yeah.
and the urgency to fix it before you lose important data or access.
Right.
They know that a frozen computer can feel like a crisis, especially for those who aren't particularly tech savvy.
That makes you wonder how much of our digital life is built on trust that we might not even realize. Thinking about those who are less familiar with technology,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking to think how easily they can be taken advantage of.
It's true. But there is some good news in the report.
Oh, okay.
The FBI's Recovery Asset Team, or RAT for short,
Okay.
played a crucial role in helping some victims recover their stolen funds.
Wait, so there's a team at the FBI called the RAT
Uh-huh.
that helps fight scammers. That's kind of awesome. So how do they work their magic?
Think of them as financial superheroes.
Okay.
They work directly with banks and other financial institutions to freeze funds that are being transferred fraudulently.
Oh, wow.
In 2023 alone, they saved victims a combined $538 million.
Wow.
It's amazing to see them swoop in and save the day.
Do you have any specific examples of how they've helped people in these situations?
Absolutely. The report highlights two cases that really stood out. One involved a construction company in New York that was targeted by a BEC scam
Mm-hmm.
and almost lost a staggering $50 million.
Wow.
Thankfully, the RAT was able to step in and freeze nearly $46 million in the scammer's account.
Wow, that's a close call.
Yeah, I bet that construction company was breathing a huge sigh of relief.
I'm sure they were.
And then there's another case, closer to home, involving someone in Connecticut
Okay.
who was in the process of buying a house. They received what they thought was an email from their attorney
Oh, no.
instructing them to wire $426,000 to finalize the closing. Turns out the email was a fake, a clever spoof designed to trick them into sending money to the scammer.
So what happened? Were they able to get their money back?
Thankfully, yes.
Oh, good.
The RAT, working in collaboration with the local police, managed to freeze the funds just in time and return almost all of it to the victim.
Oh, that's great.
These stories really highlight how swift action can make all the difference. It's reassuring to know there are people out there actively fighting back against these scammers.
Definitely. But it also makes you realize how important it is to report these crimes immediately.
Yes.
The sooner the authorities know, the better chance they have of catching these criminals and stopping them from doing more damage.
Exactly. The more information the FBI has, the more effective they can be in preventing future attacks.
Okay.
So they've got the big picture from the FBI report, but let's zoom in on some specific scams that are making headlines.
Sounds good to me. First up, let's talk about business email compromise.
All right.
It seems like this is becoming increasingly common and incredibly costly.
What's really concerning about BEC is that it's not just about stealing money.
Right.
It's about exploiting trust.
Right.
The criminals are getting more and more sophisticated, impersonating trusted contacts, using phone calls and virtual meetings to make their requests seem legitimate. Remember that Connecticut case we discussed?
Yeah.
That's a prime example of how they take advantage of people during vulnerable moments.
Right. When you're in the middle of a big transaction,
Exactly.
like buying a house, your guard might be down.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to see how someone could fall victim in those situations.
Right.
Okay, so let's shift gears now to investment scams.
Okay.
The report mentioned a huge spike in losses related to cryptocurrency, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Losses in crypto-related investment scams skyrocketed by a whopping 53% in 2023,
Oh, wow.
totaling almost $4 billion.
Wow.
This is a clear sign that scammers are capitalizing on all the hype and complexity surrounding cryptocurrencies. They know that many people are eager to get in on the action, but might not fully understand how it all works.
That reminds me of an article from CoinDesk we have.
Okay.
They dove into the different types of crypto scams out there, like those phishing scams targeting Bitcoin holders,
Right.
fake NFT projects, and even those elaborate rug pulls where developers abandon a project and run off with investors' money.
What's really concerning is how easily these scammers can create a facade of legitimacy.
Right.
They use social media to build hype, create fake websites and white papers, and even pay for fake reviews and endorsements.
It's like they're creating these entire ecosystems of deception.
It really is.
And it's not just limited to social media.
Right.
Remember that CoinDesk article also mentioned those fake YouTube live streams promising amazing crypto investment opportunities.
It's a good reminder that in the world of crypto, just like with any investment, thorough research and due diligence are essential.
Right.
Don't let the fear of missing out, or FOMO as they call it, cloud your judgment. Take your time, verify everything, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Words to live by. Okay, next up is the tech support scam.
Right.
This one seems to be a perennial favorite,
It is.
and it's especially disheartening how it often targets older adults.
The FBI report provides a chilling example of just how organized these operations can be.
Oh, really?
They uncovered a massive tech support scam run from India
Okay.
that involved a whole family laundering money.
Wow.
The ringleader, Marilyn Stirk,
Okay.
was ultimately sentenced to 30 months in prison,
Okay.
while her daughters received 3 years of probation.
Oh, wow.
This shows that we're not talking about small-time crooks here,
Right.
but sophisticated criminal networks.
It's a stark reminder that these aren't just lone wolf operators.
Yeah.
They're often part of larger organized criminal enterprises. They're preying on people's fear of a broken computer,
Yeah.
using high-pressure tactics to convince them to grant remote access or pay for unnecessary repairs.
It's insidious, really.
Yeah.
And this actually connects to another source we have, a story from the Irish Sun
Okay.
about a seemingly kind bus driver who ended up forging the wills of an elderly couple he had befriended.
The will forgery case.
Yes,
Yes, that's a heartbreaking story.
it is.
Kathleen and Desmond Moyle, the victims, lived in a village in Cornwall far from their family. This bus driver, John Harris, seemed like a helpful friend, running errands for them and driving them places.
And they trusted him enough to name him as an executor in their wills,
Oh, wow.
leaving him 25% of their estate,
Oh, no.
which was meant to be shared among other family members.
So after Desmond passed away,
Yeah.
his nephew noticed that 95% of his assets had been transferred to Harris.
Turns out Harris had forged new wills,
Wow.
awarding himself the majority of their estates.
That's awful.
He even paid 2 homeless men to act as witnesses.
Oh, it's just awful.
It's a classic example of someone exploiting trust and kindness for their own personal gain. He was eventually caught and sentenced to 5.5 years in prison.
Okay.
But the emotional damage inflicted on the family is immense.
I can imagine.
It's a stark reminder that scams can exploit trust and kindness in incredibly insidious ways.
Absolutely. And it reinforces the point that you need to be cautious about who you trust, especially when it comes to your finances and personal information.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, verify identities, and always, always get things in writing. If
Right.
something feels off, trust your instincts.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, we've covered some heavy material. Let's lighten the mood a bit
Okay.
with this last scam example from the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Okay.
It involves an email that claims they have compromising videos of you.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one. It's designed to scare people into paying a ransom.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It plays on our fear of exposure. The email threatens to send embarrassing videos to all your contacts unless you pay up. What makes it particularly scary is they include your name, address, and even a picture of your house to make it seem more believable.
It's definitely designed to trigger a panic response
Right,
and get people to act impulsively.
right.
But the EFF article emphasizes that it's all a bluff.
Really? So they don't actually have any videos?
Nope.
So how do they even get this information?
They likely obtained your information from a data breach
Oh.
and are just mass emailing this threat to millions of people,
Oh, I see.
hoping that a small percentage will panic and pay up.
So it's just a numbers game for them.
Exactly.
But the EFF article suggests a few steps to protect yourself, right?
Right.
What were they again?
First, don't respond to the email.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, if you think your information might have been compromised in a data breach, change your passwords.
Right.
And finally, consider putting a cover over your computer's camera for peace of mind.
It's amazing how a simple piece of tape can provide so much peace of mind. So we've explored a range of scams, from the highly sophisticated to the downright scary.
Right.
But what does this all mean for, our listener?
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways from this deep dive so far?
I think the most important lesson is that awareness is your best defense. These scams are constantly evolving.
Right.
So staying informed is crucial. Resources like the FBI's IC3 website and organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation
Right.
provide valuable tips on protecting yourself.
That's like they say, knowledge is power.
Exactly.
The more you know about these scams, the less likely you are to fall victim.
Exactly. And remember, the scammers are counting on you not paying attention.
Right.
By being informed and vigilant, you can outsmart them and keep your money and information safe.
Right.
Now that we've laid the groundwork and explored some specific scams,
Right.
let's dive into the psychology behind why these scams work. What makes people fall for them? Stay tuned for more.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now that we've explored the landscape and some real-world examples of scams, let's get into the psychology behind why these things actually work.
Yeah.
Is it really just about being gullible?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Scammers are masters of manipulation. They know exactly which buttons to push to get us to act against our better judgment.
Yeah.
They exploit our common human emotions and
cool.
cognitive biases, turning them into weapons against us.
So, what?
Take fear, for example.
Okay.
Fear of losing money. Fear of missing out on a great opportunity.
Right.
Fear of being exposed or embarrassed.
Like that email scam we talked about with the supposed compromising video?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That plays directly on people's fear and anxieties.
Right. Yeah.
They also tap into our desire for quick and easy solutions.
Okay.
They dangle the promise of effortless wealth, a magical fix for our computer problems, or a way to bypass those complex legal processes.
That makes sense.
Right.
We live in a world of instant gratification.
Yeah,
We want everything now,
exactly.
and scammers exploit that impatience.
Absolutely. Another powerful tactic is creating a sense of urgency.
Okay.
They pressure you to act quickly before you have time to think things through
Right.
or get advice from someone you trust.
So they're like trying to short circuit our rational decision-making process.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They might say things like, this offer is only available for a limited time.
Right.
Or you need to act now to avoid serious consequences.
Oh, yeah, like those classic high-pressure sales tactics,
Exactly.
but with a much more sinister twist.
Yes, exactly.
And sometimes they even appeal to our empathy and compassion, like posing as a charity or someone in need, pulling at our heartstrings to get us to donate.
It's truly despicable to take advantage of people's good intentions like that.
It is.
So you see, it's not simply about being gullible.
Right.
These scammers are using carefully crafted psychological techniques to manipulate our emotions and cloud our judgment.
Which makes it even more important to be aware of these tactics and to have some strategies in place to help us spot those red flags.
Right.
Let's talk about those. What are some telltale signs that something might be a scam?
One of the most obvious ones, though surprisingly easy to fall for, is if something sounds too good to be true.
Okay.
This might seem like an obvious one,
Right.
but it's amazing how easily we can get caught up in the excitement of a seemingly amazing opportunity.
Right. Like if you're being promised outrageous returns on an investment.
Yes.
Or an effortless solution to a complex problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are major warning signs.
Okay.
Another thing to watch out for is urgent requests or high-pressure tactics. If someone is demanding you act immediately
Yeah.
without giving you time to think or do your research,
Right.
be very wary.
Like those emails that scream, your account has been compromised. Click here now to secure it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are designed to trigger panic and bypass our rational thinking.
Be cautious with unfamiliar contacts as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
If you get an unsolicited email,
Right.
text message, or phone call from someone you don't know, urging you to take some action,
Yeah.
be very skeptical.
So even if they say they're from like a bank or the government or something.
Exactly. This applies even if they claim to be from a legitimate organization.
So always verify their identity independently.
Yes.
Don't rely on the contact information provided in the message itself.
Excellent point.
Another sneaky tactic to watch out for is poor grammar and spelling.
Yeah, that's a good one.
While not all scammers are illiterate,
Right.
many of these scams originate overseas,
Right.
and the messages often contain telltale grammatical errors or misspellings.
Like a little clue that something isn't quite right.
Right, exactly.
And perhaps the most important red flag of all
Okay.
is request for personal information. Never, ever give out sensitive data like your social security number, bank account details, or passwords unless you are absolutely certain of the source and the legitimacy of the request.
That's crucial.
Yeah.
Scammers are always looking for ways to steal your identity and your money.
Right.
Legitimate organizations will never ask for that kind of information over email or phone.
Right. So the key takeaway here is verification.
Okay.
Don't just take someone's word for it.
Right.
Do your research, check identities, and if something feels off, trust your gut.
So to sum it up, trust your instincts.
Yes.
Don't rush and verify.
Love it.
We've talked about the psychology of scams and some key red flags.
Yes.
But what are some practical tips our listener can use to protect themselves?
Let's equip you with some actionable steps you can take to reduce your risk. First, be mindful of what you share online.
Okay.
Scammers often gather information about their victims from social media posts,
Right.
public records, and data breaches.
Right.
Be thoughtful about the information you make publicly available.
So no posting photos of your new credit card. Right.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And be careful about sharing details like your birth date, address, or phone number.
It's all about being mindful of our digital footprint.
Exactly. Second, whenever possible, enable two-factor authentication on your accounts.
Okay.
Think of it as a double lock.
Right.
Even if someone gets hold of your password, they'll still need that second code, usually sent to your phone, to get in.
It might seem like a hassle, but it's worth it for the added security.
Absolutely. Third, be wary of clicking on links in unsolicited emails or text messages.
Right.
These links could lead to phishing websites designed to steal your login credentials.
So it's always safer to type the website address directly into your browser or use a bookmark.
Good advice.
Okay.
Fourth, keep your software up to date.
Okay.
Software updates often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities that scammers could exploit.
So those annoying pop-ups reminding you to update your operating system or apps are actually important.
They are, so don't ignore them.
Okay.
And finally, back up your important data regularly.
Okay.
This is essential in case you fall victim to a ransomware attack or another cybercrime.
It's like having an insurance policy for your digital life.
Exactly. These steps won't make you invincible,
right?
But they'll make you a much harder target.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
The shocking stats, the psychology behind scams, and even some practical tips for protecting ourselves.
We've seen how these scams can impact individuals,
right?
Businesses,
entire
industries, really.
It's a good reminder that we need to be vigilant and informed in this digital age.
Absolutely. And one of the most important takeaways from this deep dive is that we need to talk about these scams.
Right.
Share information. Raise awareness and help each other stay safe.
Because silence only benefits the scammers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues.
Right.
Share what you've learned from this deep dive. You could even create a simple checklist based on those red flags to help others spot potential scams.
That's a great idea. A little bit of awareness can go a long way.
Absolutely. Because in the wild world of scams, knowledge is power and vigilance is your best defense.
Well said. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to shift gears just slightly and bring in something that connects to what we've been talking about today. But from a slightly different angle. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring the world of scams.
It is kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling to realize how many ways people can be tricked and taken advantage of.
Yeah, we've seen from the FBI report and those real-life stories just how widespread these scams are.
Right.
And the devastating impact they can have on people.
We've learned that these scams are more than just clever tricks. They're often sophisticated psychological operations designed to exploit our vulnerabilities.
Yeah, scammers are masters at preying on our fears, our desires, and even our good intentions.
Right.
They push our buttons and manipulate us into making decisions we might later regret.
Which is why it's so important to be aware and vigilant.
Absolutely.
We need to stay informed, be skeptical, and always be willing to double-check things.
Exactly. Remember those red flags we talked about?
Yeah.
If something sounds too good to be true, if someone is pressuring you to act quickly, or if they're asking for personal information they shouldn't have access to, those are all big warning signs.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is.
And never be afraid to ask questions. Verify identities.
And get things in writing.
Those are all excellent strategies. And remember, if you do fall victim to a scam, don't be ashamed to report it. The more information we share, the better equipped we are to fight back against these criminals. Sharing your experience could prevent someone else from becoming a victim.
It's true. Staying silent only protects the scammers. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on something we haven't explicitly discussed. But which connects to everything we've explored today.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's on your mind?
Well, we've talked a lot about how scams exploit our vulnerabilities. But what if, instead of just focusing on protecting ourselves, we also focused on making ourselves less vulnerable in the first place?
That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah, how do you envision that?
Many of these scams succeed because they prey on things like our lack of knowledge or financial insecurity.
Our loneliness, or even our desperation. What if we actively worked to address those underlying vulnerabilities?
So it's not just about putting up walls and defenses. It's about building resilience.
Exactly. For example, if you're worried about falling victim to investment scams, why not invest in your financial literacy? Learn about different investment strategies, understand the risks involved, and maybe seek advice from, reputable financial advisors.
That makes perfect sense.
And if you're concerned about tech support scams, educate yourself about basic computer maintenance and security. There are tons of resources available online and at your local library.
It's all about empowering yourself with knowledge.
And what about those scams that target people who are feeling isolated or lonely?
That's where building strong social connections comes in. Join a club, volunteer, or simply spend more time with loved ones when we feel connected and supported. We're less likely to fall prey to those who seek to exploit our vulnerabilities.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It's not just about being vigilant against scams.
Right.
It's about building a life that is less susceptible to them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By addressing those underlying vulnerabilities, we empower ourselves and make it that much harder for scammers to succeed.
That's a great point for our listeners to think about.
Yeah.
It's not just about defense, it's about personal growth and empowerment.
Exactly. Because ultimately, the best way to combat scams is to create a world where they have less power over us.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of scams.
It's been real.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Yeah.
We hope you've learned some valuable insights and feel empowered to navigate the digital landscape safely and confidently.
Remember, knowledge is power, vigilance is key, and by building resilience, we can outsmart even the most cunning of scammers.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.